Welcome, citizens, for another Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous. I am Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo, and this is episode 56. It's been 2 weeks since I stood on the deck of the Sonia Rose. I've named my ship after my deceased mom. She died 2 years ago from cancer, so I think it's going to be great that I get to name my Carrack. Yes, I got a Carrack after my mom. I'm sure the Carrack will look a little bit different than this, but let's make believe this is a news center module that we added to the bottom of the Carrack. So a lot's been going on in the Star Citizen universe, and we're getting ready for a major release, version 1.0, which hopefully, fingers crossed, toes crossed, eyes crossed, light candles, and do whatever you do, dance naked around a fire. Hopefully, it'll be out by the 19th when they have their live stream. So what are the things I want to talk about today? Lots of things go on in 2 weeks in the Star Citizen universe, so if I tried to dissect every bit of information, you guys might be looking at me for the better part of 2 hours, so I'm not going to do that. I like to keep these to about 20 minutes, so what I'm most likely going to do is to try to switch up the format a little bit today, and I hope you like it, okay? We're going to go through a few things, and then on, hopefully, next week I have 1 day off. I have Wednesday. I'll do another show on Wednesday. Actually, there'll probably be 3 shows that I have to do on Wednesday. My State of the Game, the show with Ben, and this one. So Wednesday's going to be a very busy day for me. But the new format's going to be, a lot of people have been telling me to do this. I should say a few people, not a lot. And what I want to do is I want to present it like news stories. And I'm going to just change it up a tiny bit. And I want you to write down in the comments section, tell me if you like it or not. So before we go on, I'm going to give you a very basic overview of what we're going to try to talk about between today and Wednesday. So we have quite a few stretch goals that have hit. We have the deletion of stretch goals, well, not the deletion, but the sunsetting of a stretch goal for every million reached. In other words, no more stretch goals for every million. They'll have them occasionally when they want to add something to the game and want our input. So those will be probably once in a blue moon that we see. And we'll talk about that. There were 2 mechanics laid out for us. We talked about one already, and that was the healing a spaceman. And I'm going to have a little excerpt that's going to be coming up in a few minutes on the, I guess you'd call it multiplayer seat actions and multiplayer ships. We have a couple of other things. We want to know what the Hornet for All, what it accomplished. Did a lot of you buy Hornets? I want to talk about Gladiator in the hangar. I want to talk about the Let's Party. In other words, they're going to have a big event next Friday, a week from today. I want to talk about the Gladiator sale because it may go back on sale again today. And I want to talk about notes from around the verse, okay? So let's get going. So in this first little piece, this first little report I'm going to do, we're going to watch a little bit of a video about me talking to you about seat actions in multiplayer systems. And that's going to be an in-game little video that's going to appear now. And I hope you like this format, like I said. In the last letter from the chairman, multi-cruise ship systems were spelled out for us. Now I'm going to give you a brief overview of this, but basically what I want to do is bring you to what Chris Roberts' idea of this game is. Now there are solo ships and there are multiplayer ships, and then there are org and team ships. Solo ships and multiplayer ships can be played by one person. Solo ships being the fighters like the Hornet, the Avenger, the 300i, the Aurora, and the Mustang, and a couple of others would only have a crew of 1. As soon as you get into the 2-man ships, like the Super Hornet, the recently released Gladiator, and now the Freelancer, the Cutlass, and a little bit more of the ships that we haven't seen yet, you're going to have an opportunity to put a second crewman in there. What's spelled out in this document that was released in the last letter from the chairman is exactly what will be going on in those different stations in our ships. But before we go there, I really want to touch on one thing. The big thing I want to touch on is that Chris Roberts expects this to be a true multiplayer social experience. he envisions this, not in his words, in my words, to try to make it understandable, is that this game be played like a traditional MMO, where you join your friends and you take on the world with just, with those people. When you play a game like Dungeons and Dragons, or you play World of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings, or whatever it is, you have the holy trinity of a tank, someone that receives damage, you have a healer / mechanic, someone that repairs the damage, and you have a long distance person. You would call them like the ranged combat, the DPS of some sort. Well, in this game, it's going to be different, totally different, and that holy trinity is going to be completely different. Many of the ships are going to have multi-stations. Now let's take, for instance, the Freelancer, which is a very popular ship. It's listed as a crew of 2, and in actuality, that crew of 2 disperses into 2 primary areas. The cockpit with the pilot, and in the tail of the ship, in the turret, with whoever's going to man, we'll call him a gunner, or call her a gunner. But when you go on the Freelancer, there are other stations. Let's take a look and see what I mean. So we're going to try to relate to this document, but in this particular instance, because even though they're telling us what each thing is going to do, this is pre-alpha, and we know that it's going to go pre-alpha, alpha, pre-beta, beta, and then not until it gets into the middle of beta do we know exactly what is going to be at each one of these stations. Okay, so we're getting into the game right now. All I did was click, and in front of me is a Freelancer MIS. This is the limited edition that I purchased when it was first announced. Okay, so let's get up inside and let's take a look around. I'm going to open a few doors here, and I'm going to go right back up to the front seat. Okay? And I'm not going to get in any particular station. We're just going to talk about it. So with a crew of 2, we have somebody that would be here flying the ship, and theoretically someone that comes back here and will man the turret. Now, yes, we can have an NPC man that turret for us. Well, I never realized that was the ladder. Pretty cool, right? All right. So in that situation, this poor pilot has to take on the role of pilot, navigator, weapons officer, ECM, electronic countermeasures officer, and damage control officer. All of those hats are worn by our pilot. Back here, we will have a crewman that will take on a couple of those roles too. Gunner, weapons systems officer in some respects, can run up front and help with that if they need to. Damage control officer, etc. Let's go back up front again and take a look. So we've got more than 2 seats in this ship and more than 2 stations. So we have a pilot, we have a co-pilot seat, and then we have these 2 back here, right? And then there are 2 stations that are actually stowed right here. One there and one there. It is possible to hold 4 crewmen on this ship. So one person could be a pilot, and then you could assign different operations to every one of these different stations on the ship. So this particular station can be the weapons systems officer, and this particular station could be the person that's going to be the damage control and maybe shield management. This is one of the things that makes this different than some of the other games that are on the market or have been on the market. When you fly a multiplayer ship inside of something like War Thunder, I fly a B-17. The AI controls my gunners, or I can switch to a view where I'm kind of controlling all of the gunners at once. In this situation, what I'd be doing is taking my friend. Okay, so I'm Nicole, I'm flying here. And then I say to my friend, let's say Renegade Shank, I want you to be over here, but when things hit the fan, I want you to run back there. That's your job. Now I have somebody named Captain, the Captain Gloom. I'd put her back here, and she would man, well, you know what? She's pretty nice. I'd make her my healer, otherwise known as my damage control officer, and
She would work my shields and make sure that they're always coming up, and probably be my electronic countermeasures officer. And over here, this would be somebody like, let's say, X-Fade, or let's say maybe even Pappy Boynton. You're my weapons systems officer. And this person would man the 2 turrets on the side, which are with those big giant guns, and actually take care of power distribution to make sure that I always have a lot of power to my weapons when I need it, or possibly moving over to my engines when I need it. But they're also the people that are going to work the radar and lock onto targets for me. This is the way that Chris envisions a small ship like this working. Let's take a walk, okay? Let's go on to something a bit bigger, a bit larger, a bit more intricate than this. So we're walking down and we're going to go to our left. There it is. That's the Constellation Phoenix. The Constellation Phoenix is an extremely modular vessel. At this particular point in time, those modules have not been spelled out for us, but we've been promised them in the latest stretch goal. We're going to go up in here and take a look around. So let's walk around the constellation first, okay? Obviously, there's nothing going on here. This is the sleep and poop and shower area, right? But in this area, there will be electronics that can be manned all the time. In this area over here and in this area over here. These will be able to bring down these stations, and you will be able to put somebody in charge of them. If we go up here, we don't have 1 seat, we have 3. Captain, maybe navigator, maybe weapons systems officer. But it gets more advanced than that. On the actual Phoenix, we'll have 2 turrets. Currently, they're not modeled. We only have 1 modeled. I have a turret there. I have a turret there. And as we go back here and find the rest of the ship and getting past the Captain Landau Calrissian, otherwise known as Disco Lando, designed Phoenix, we're going to go over here into this area. This might be my engineer, my Geordie LaForge. These stations back here will have specific things that could happen that would be detailed by me when I invite them as crewmen on my ship. Still, there's this hatch over here that leads to my Archimedes. So as you see, multi-ship systems are going to be quite intricate, quite dynamic, and quite configurable. It is possible for me to fly the ship with me and the 10 different packages that I own also have 10 different character slots, so I could essentially have myself and 9 characters that I own on here. But they will never react and they will never think like a real live human being. So they're giving us the ability to configure these systems. Let's take another walk, okay? Let's see how deep multiplayer systems go. Let's go into this area over here. I have 2 ships that have, I have 2 ships that have 2 crew positions. Here is one of my best and most advanced ships. This is the F-7C-M Hornet. I have the pilot in the front, and I have the weapons systems officer / turret operator, navigator, or ride-along passenger that sits in the back. At some point in the future, I'll be able to configure that station to do what I want them to do. Should I want the turret to just fire forward, I could put them in charge of 2 things: shields, weapons, power management, or in charge of 3 or 4 or 5 things. It all depends on what I choose to set that station up as. So multiplayer systems are going to be quite intricate, like I said. They're building a system by which we can actually have a much more social experience in what otherwise would just be an everyday space combat simulation.
Well, and that's everything that I was able to put together about multiplayer seat actions. The big part I take out of that is that Chris Roberts and the rest of the team at CIG really want this to be a multiplayer experience. It's kind of like when you get on these multiplayer ships, picture yourself being in a group in something like World of Warcraft, any of the games that you play, ESO, if anyone still plays that, Lord of the Rings. You need to get those type of people together. So you're going to have, I hate my allergies. I really do. So you're going to have a pilot, you're going to have a gunner, you're going to have a science officer that's maybe playing with shields and stuff. You're going to have a missile operator, you know, all these different things. Maybe somebody that does ECM, maybe somebody trying to hack into the systems on the other ship to drop their shields. So there's quite a bunch of things, quite a number of things that you can do in the larger ships and even the smaller ships. Take, for instance, I think I walked through the Freelancer real quick in that one. The Freelancer has those, the front seat, the pilot and co-pilot. So the minimum crew, maximum crew, whatever they want to call it, is 2. Because you need the pilot, you need the gunner in the back. Go to the MIS that I have, it's 3 because you need the guy or girl manning the reloader for the missiles in the back. But there's also still the co-pilot seat and those 2 other seats behind it, which in the future will have actions that you could assign to it. Somebody working the defensive countermeasures, somebody working the maybe the turrets on the side. If you remember in the video, that was pretty kick-ass. Not that video, but the commercial that they did. So I think that was a pretty, well, actually not just a pretty awesome thing. Next thing I want to talk to you about today is going to be stretch goals and about all the goals that we hit. And for this one, I'm going to talk to you like this. So in the last couple of weeks, we've seen that Chris Roberts has been taking his time getting the stretch goal, well, the letters from the editor out, or letters of the chairman out. And in this situation, it's mostly because, you know, how many systems could you add to a game? It just distracts the devs from what they need to do. So in the last couple of weeks, we got things like multiplayer ship systems. That was just an overview of what they were already doing. They added pets to the game, always intended, and it's something they added for us. They've added a ship into the game. Of course, that was the MIS Reliant. Can't wait to see that. And they added a couple of other little bits and pieces, right? So we went through 60, 61, 62, 63, 65, $66 million by the time this comes out. And that's a lot of things to start putting into the game that's coming out in 18 months and has already been in development for 2.5, 3 years. So the removal of stretch goals isn't saying, hey, we're not grateful to you. It's not saying, hey, we're not adding anything else to the game. It's pretty much saying, let's not get distracted. Let's get what's on our plate finished, tuned, and ready to go. And let's focus at what's at hand. Let's get this game out. Now, they may come back and say, you know what, we decided that we need another boarding ship, or, you know what, we decided that you're going to get another Vandal ship that you might be able to capture. We want to know which one that is. Or it might be, woohoo, we hit $75 million, and for everybody, you have another space plant. But I don't know what they're going to be, and I don't think they know what they're going to be until that time happens. All right? An update on shipping. If any of you ordered the little gray men, they are now shipping. I saw that happen the other day. Pretty good, I think. I'm still hoping that one of you that does Warhammer and paints those little intricate design, little intricate tiny little characters and tanks and everything, will be willing to let me send you mine and have you paint them for me. Next big thing was we had the ship sale, right? So what happened in that ship sale? Well, it began on the 19th, right? And it went straight through for a week, okay? And we had quite a number, well, actually began the week before that, right? So we had quite a number of ships that went up for sale. And lo and behold, one of the ships that was put on sale, the Gladiator, winds up in our hangar 2 days ago. The Gladiator, I did this review. Okay, I'm not going to play it straight through because it's about 11 or 12 or 15 minutes. And you can go and watch it inside my feed. And what I find about the Gladiator is it's a very, very purposeful built ship. Now, I made some statements inside there. One about the big round area behind it, being able to have a turret. I was incorrect. The turret is already in place. It's removable and you can put other pieces in there. I'm not sure what they are. We'll find out later today in the brochure. But I think that the Gladiator is going to be a kick-butt ship to own. Now, I did say that it has 8 TR2 thrusters. TR2 thrusters being a little bit more advanced than the TR1s in other ships, like the, not the Aurora, but the 300i, which has 12 TR1s, right? TR2s have more thrust. They have flex ones on top that are able to move in pretty much in a arc on a yaw way, I guess that is. And the ones on the bottom are the jointed, which can actually give it a lot more maneuverability. The reason why I said this thing was going to be highly maneuverable wasn't because it had 8 thrusters, but because it had 2 TR4 engines that you could possibly put on there, the thrusters, and that it only weighs 11,000 kilograms unladen. That's without torpedoes. Now that torpedo bay is tremendous. So those torpedoes might be adding a lot of weight to that, which is totally taking away what I'm saying. But the ship is also modular. So I want you to understand that you can probably carry cargo in that area. You could probably carry other systems in that area. And in the lore, in the Anvil Aerospace lore, they even talk about it being modular enough where they've been fitted for some search and rescue missions, which I don't know how. Maybe they're carrying something underneath, or maybe they're accompanying a Cutlass Red as the Sandies, which in Vietnam, they would usually have Sky Raiders that would come in and blow up all the VC on the ground so the helicopters could land and rescue whatever troops were down there. So I think that the Gladiator is going to be an awesome addition. However, it is not flyable yet, and it probably will not be flyable, according to Ben, the day that version 1.0 comes out. It will be flyable later on. Probably about 1.2, 1.3 is what he was saying the first time I asked him, but we know how things change. That could be moved up, that could be moved back. So there's real no 100% way to know if that's going to be flyable in the near future. With that said, I have this show that airs every now and then. Let's listen to it for just a little bit. This is my 5 for the CM, where each week on Wednesday or Thursday night, I get with Ben and ask him 5 of your questions and 1 of mine. I call it 5 for the CM because you guys get to ask those questions. And then it's +1 because I'm the hostess. I get to do what I want, right? So let's listen to 1 of the questions that Ben answered.
Okay. Now, I think this one speaks to one of the things that came out in Chris's letter this week. Stretch goals are traditionally associated with crowdfunding campaigns. Star Citizen has been holding their own campaign for over 2 years now, and finally the stretch goals have seen a sunset. Can you share with us some of the conversation that you've had internally about stretch goals? For instance, the original poll on shutting them down earlier, and if you think that they went a little bit too long.
I will say I don't want to say they went too long, and I will also stress that they're not over yet. We're just not necessarily giving you a new game feature for every million, because that honestly confused people more than it helped to some degree.
Right.
So as we get great ideas, if somebody comes into the office tomorrow and says, "Hey, I figured out how we can do procedural starship generation," and we just have to change our schedule this way, that'll be a stretch goal.
Okay.
But we're not going to sort of reach for them at this point. It got to the point where we were feeling like, so far it was things we pulled from our wish list, and it was just getting to the point where our wish list is out there. There's plenty still on our wish list, but a lot of it is crazier stuff that will go beyond, $1 million does this.
Okay.
So that was kind of the root of the decision there. You'll still see stretch goals in the future. You'll still see player rewards. You're just going to see a lot more in between about the making of the game, drilling down to the GDD, TDD level of how stuff is going to work.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for sitting down and watching this with me. I want you to know that this is in the thread. It's in its own playlist. It's called 5 for the CM, or 5 for Ben Lesnik is the actual playlist. So each week you can submit questions into whatever video was just played And at the end of that week, before I talk to Ben, I'm going to pick the questions from there. And also from people that are in the Star Citizen AA subscriber den thread. Most of them have been coming from you all that have been putting them into the comments section. But every now and then, I've got to throw one in from the subscribers. But this is the opportunity, and I want this to be the opportunity for the non-subscribers to be able to ask questions directly to CIG. Because in 10 for the Chairman, that's what we as subscribers get to do. It is really tough to talk with braces at times. They just tighten mine up a lot, so I have a lot more. It hurts, okay? With that said, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.